We've looked at the ability of signing on to AWS using IAM credentials or even root credentials, but what about signing on to Amazon to access resources? If you're wanting to maybe authenticate at work first and then through your application, access resources at AWS. Or perhaps your applications are actually hosted at Amazon. In this case, you might want a single sign-on service. Single sign-on to the end user. Behind the scenes, lots of moving pieces. A single sign-on is also called federating. So if I want to federate a user, I'm saying that they have already authenticated externally, such as a corporate network, and then I want them to be linked to resources through a process called federation. Probably the most popular methodology of federation is using Active Directory domain services on-prem. The client has corporate credentials with the on-prem Active Directory database. What we have to do is establish a trust between the corporate network and the account resources that that corporate entity wants to actually access. So we have to have some way of synchronizing our on-prem corporate credential information with Active Directory stored at Amazon. So if I want to use resources at Amazon, I want this relationship, i.e. a federation, to prove my identity because I want to extend my user identity, access resources at AWS without having to create an IAM user account because I don't want to log on to Amazon as an administrator. I want to log on as an end user to use an Amazon resource that's linked to my application, probably storage. So we have to manage this external identity, and what's happening here is we need an external provider on-prem, in this case Active Directory domain services, but we also could use other external identity providers because your users might be having Facebook accounts or Google accounts. We also might use a service called Amazon Cognito, which we're going to talk about later on in this class, which helps us integrate an identity provider into our custom applications. So there's a number of different services to help us with the external authentication, proving the identity of that external authentication, and then allowing that external user to access Amazon resources or potentially an application hosted at AWS. Therefore, I can go to Amazon Web Services and install Active Directory in the cloud using AWS Directory Services. This is a managed AWS service, and what happens is it integrates with my on-prem Active Directory domain services. I first create a standalone directory service hosted by AWS. This service is managed by Amazon. They patch it, they perform all the upgrades, all the backups, and my directory information is replicated across multiple availability zones within the region that I've selected to install AWS Directory Services. We also have a service called the Security Token Service, which provides a methodology for federated users to receive temporary security credentials. So if I have a copy of Active Directory on-prem synchronized with a copy of Active Directory in the cloud, then when I bring my credentials as an external user to AWS, those external credentials are checked with the copy of Active Directory on-prem. If they match up, then the Security Token Service is going to provide a set of temporary security credentials for that externally authenticated user. The Security Token Service has a default global endpoint, but I can make requests at a specific region location if I'm operating within that AWS region. So assuming my external authentication at work is accepted by Amazon as a valid set of credentials, I will have a set of temporary security credentials with a short-lived access key, a secret access key, and a session token to carry out in the background access to the Amazon resource that I wanted access to. Customers, that's you, can specify how long the temporary credentials are valid, from 15 minutes to 36 hours. One of the biggest features of the STS, the Security Token Service, is the ability of providing secure access without requiring an additional AWS identity. Using STS removes the need to distribute any security credentials to external users. And it supports, of course, single sign-on, and it also supports multi-factor authentication. So again, the end user can authenticate at work. And then behind the scenes, those credentials are passed on to STS. STS checks out the credentials using the copy, in this case of Active Directory, that's stored at Amazon, verifies the user, and then provides the temporary access token to the end user. So lots of moving parts in the background. As far as the user is concerned, it's a single sign-on. They put in their credentials once, and the relationship between the credentials externally and at Amazon is handled in the background. By default, credentials expire after 1 hour when I'm using a SAML connection. That's the Security Association Markup Language, which is used by Active Directory Domain Services. Again, we can change that default.